The wind howled like a dying wolf across the frozen plains of Colorado Territory, and Olivia Zimmerman pressed her face against the frost-covered window of the stagecoach, wondering if she would live to see another dawn. It was February 1876, and the storm had come out of nowhere, sweeping down from the mountains with a fury that turned the world into a whirling white nightmare. The stage driver had tried to push through, but the horses could barely see 5 feet ahead, and the snow was already knee-deep and climbing. Olivia clutched her carpetbag tighter as the coach lurched violently, throwing her against the worn leather seat. She was 22 years old, traveling alone from Denver to Florissant, Colorado, where she was supposed to meet her intended husband, a banker named Harold, who she had never met in person. Their courtship had been conducted entirely through letters, and now, as the coach groaned and tilted dangerously, Olivia wondered if she would ever reach him at all. "We cannot go on," the driver shouted down from his perch, his voice barely audible over the screaming wind. "We will have to wait it out." But where could they wait? They were miles from anywhere, caught in the open with night falling fast and the temperature dropping so quickly that Olivia could see her breath forming ice crystals in the air before her face. The coach shuddered to a halt, listing heavily to one side. Olivia tried to open the door, but the wind fought her, and snow was already piling up against the side of the coach. She heard the driver cursing, heard him struggling with the horses, and then there was an awful silence broken only by the wind. "Hello," she called out, her voice thin and frightened. "Sir, are you there?" No answer came. Olivia wrapped her wool cloak tighter around her shoulders and tried the door again, managing to force it open a crack. Snow poured in immediately, and the cold was so intense it stole her breath. She could see nothing but white, could hear nothing but the wind. The driver was gone, whether thrown from his seat or gone to tend the horses. She did not know. She was alone. Hours passed, or perhaps only minutes. Time became meaningless as the cold seeped through her clothes and into her bones. Olivia pulled everything from her carpetbag and wrapped it around herself, layer upon layer, but still she shook. Her fingers were numb, her feet like blocks of ice. She tried to stay awake, knowing somehow that sleep would be dangerous, but her eyelids grew heavy despite her fear. Then, through the howling storm, she heard something. A voice, deep and strong, calling out. Hoofbeats muffled by snow. She tried to call back, but her voice was weak, and she was not sure anyone could hear her over the wind. The coach door was wrenched open, and a man appeared, so covered in snow he looked like a ghost. "Anyone alive in here?" he shouted. "Yes," Olivia managed. "Yes, I am here." He was inside the coach in an instant, large and solid, bringing with him the smell of horses and leather and something else, something like pine smoke. "Can you move?" he asked. And even through her haze of cold, Olivia noticed his voice was gentler now, concerned. "I think so," she said, though she was not sure it was true. "We need to get you out of here. My horse is nearby and I know a place we can shelter, but we have to move now. Can you stand?" Olivia tried, but her legs would not obey her. The man did not hesitate. He scooped her up as easily as if she weighed nothing, wrapping his heavy coat around her, and carried her out into the storm. The world was a nightmare of white and cold and wind that tried to tear them apart. Olivia buried her face against the man's chest, feeling the solid beat of his heart, the warmth of his body. He held her tightly, moving with purpose through the storm, and she trusted him completely, though she did not know why. A horse materialized from the snow, a big roan stallion that stood steady despite the storm. The man lifted Olivia into the saddle, then swung up behind her, one arm locked around her waist. "Hold on," he said into her ear, and then they were moving. She had no idea how long they rode. The cold was everything, a living thing that wanted to devour her. She felt herself fading, drifting away, and the man's arm tightened around her. "Stay with me," he commanded. "Do not go to sleep. Stay." That word, spoken with such fierce determination, cut through her fog. Stay. She clung to it, to him, to the warmth of his body against her back. Finally, blessedly, they stopped. The man dismounted and pulled her down into his arms again, and she felt him moving, heard a door scraping open. They were inside somewhere, out of the wind, though it was barely warmer. He laid her down on something hard, wooden planks beneath her, and then he was moving around, doing something she could not see. Light flared suddenly. A match struck, and Olivia blinked against it. She could see rough wooden walls, a small cabin, empty except for some old furniture. The man was kneeling by a stone fireplace, building a fire with quick, efficient movements. He had removed his snow-covered coat and hat, and Olivia could see him properly now. He was perhaps 26 or 27, tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that curled at his collar and a strong, weathered face. His hands were large and capable as they arranged kindling and struck another match. The fire caught, flames licking up hungrily, and the man fed it carefully until it was burning strong. Only then did he turn to Olivia. "We need to get you warm," he said. "You are half frozen." He pulled her closer to the fire, then disappeared into the back of the cabin. He returned with dusty but dry blankets, which he wrapped around her, chafing her hands and feet with brisk, impersonal efficiency that was nonetheless oddly comforting. "What is your name?" he asked as he worked. "Olivia," she managed through chattering teeth. "Olivia Zimmerman." "I am Dalton Ellis," he said. "I was on my way back to my ranch when the storm hit. Lucky I saw your stagecoach, or I would have ridden right past." "The driver," Olivia said suddenly. "He was up top, but I do not know what happened to him." Dalton's face was grim. "I will look for him when the storm breaks. But right now, I need to make sure you do not freeze to death. When did you last eat?" Olivia tried to remember. "This morning." "In Denver." Dalton nodded and went to his saddlebags, which he had brought inside with them. He pulled out some dried meat and hardtack, not much, but he handed half to Olivia. "Eat slowly," he instructed. She obeyed, and the food, though plain, was the most delicious thing she had ever tasted. Dalton added more wood to the fire, building it up until the small cabin was filled with warmth and flickering light. The wind still howled outside, rattling the windows, but inside it was almost cozy. "This cabin," Olivia said when she could speak without her teeth chattering. "Who does it belong to?" "Old trapper named Jim Sadler used to live here. He died last winter, no family to claim the place. It is used sometimes by travelers caught out in bad weather." Dalton settled back against the wall, his long legs stretched out before him. "We were lucky it was here." "I was lucky you were here," Olivia corrected. "I think I would have died if you had not found me." Dalton looked at her for a long moment, his eyes dark in the firelight. "What is a woman doing traveling alone in February?" "I am going to Florissant," Olivia said. "To be married." Something flickered across Dalton's face, too quick to read. "Arranged marriage, of sorts. We have corresponded for 6 months. His name is Harold Pemberton. He is a banker." Olivia pulled the blankets tighter around herself. "And you, where is your ranch?" "About 10 miles northeast of Florissant. Cattle ranch, though winters like this make it hard. Lost a dozen head already this month." He stood and went to the window, peering out into the darkness. "Storm is not letting up. We will be here at least until morning." Olivia nodded, suddenly exhausted. The warmth of the fire was making her drowsy, and her body ached from the cold and the fear. Dalton noticed and pulled more blankets from the cabin's small supply, making a pallet for her near the fire. "Sleep," he said. "You are safe now. I will keep the fire going." "But you must be tired too," Olivia protested. "I am used to long nights. Sleep." Olivia wanted to argue, but her body betrayed her. She lay down on the pallet and sleep claimed her almost instantly. She woke sometime in the night to find the fire still burning strong and Dalton sitting nearby, watching the flames. He had pulled on his coat again, and there was a rifle across his knees. When he noticed her stirring, he turned. "Just precaution," he said, nodding at the rifle. "Sometimes wolves get bold in storms like this." Olivia sat up, pulling the blankets with her. "Have you slept at all? I will later. How are you feeling? Warmer? Better?" She looked at him, this stranger who had saved her life. "Why were you out in the storm?" "I was in town getting supplies when it hit. I thought I could make it home, but the storm came on faster than I expected." He paused. "I almost did not see your coach. If the wind had been blowing the other direction, if I had been 10 feet further east, I would have missed you completely." "Fate," Olivia said softly. "Maybe." Dalton poked at the fire, sending sparks spiraling up. "This Harold Pemberton, you love him?" The question was blunt, surprising. Olivia considered it. "I do not know him well enough to love him, but he seems kind in his letters, responsible. He can provide a good life." "That is not love." "No," Olivia admitted. "But love is a luxury not every woman can afford. My parents died 2 years ago. I have been working as a seamstress in Denver, but the work is irregular, the pay poor. Harold offered me security, a home. That is not nothing." Dalton was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "You deserve more than security." Olivia felt something stir in her chest, something warm and unexpected. "What do I deserve?" He looked at her then, really looked at her, and Olivia felt her breath catch. "Everything," he said simply. The moment stretched between them, charged with something Olivia did not dare name. Then Dalton looked away, back to the fire, and the spell was broken. "You should sleep more," he said. "We have a long day tomorrow." Olivia lay back down, but sleep was slower to come this time. She found herself watching Dalton in the firelight, this mysterious cowboy who had appeared out of the storm like an answer to a prayer she had not known she was praying. There was something about him, something solid and real and utterly dependable. In the few hours she had known him, he had shown her more genuine care than Harold had in 6 months of letters. But that was foolishness, she told herself. She was tired and frightened and grateful, nothing more. Dalton was a stranger, and she was promised to another man. Whatever she was feeling was just the natural gratitude of someone who had been saved from death. Still, as she finally drifted back to sleep, it was Dalton's face she saw behind her closed eyes. Morning came gray and cold, but the storm had finally blown itself out. Olivia woke to find Dalton already up, the fire rebuilt, and the smell of coffee in the air. He had somehow produced a battered tin pot and was brewing coffee over the flames. "It is not much," he said, handing her a cup, "but it is hot." The coffee was strong and bitter and absolutely perfect. Olivia wrapped her hands around the warm tin and sipped gratefully. Outside the window, she could see the devastation the storm had left behind. Snow was piled in huge drifts, covering everything. The sky was clearing, pale blue showing between ragged clouds, but the world was buried in white. "The stagecoach?" she asked. "I went out at first light. It is about a mile from here, buried in snow. The horses are gone, probably broke free and headed for shelter. No sign of the driver." Dalton's face was grim. "I will search more thoroughly once I get you to town." "He might still be alive," Olivia said, though she did not really believe it. "Maybe. But you are alive, and that is what matters right now. We need to get you to Florissant, get you warm and fed properly. My horse can carry us both, but it will be slow going in this snow." They finished the coffee and prepared to leave. Dalton banked the fire carefully, making sure it was completely out before they left the cabin. He helped Olivia onto his horse, then swung up behind her just as he had the night before. His arm came around her waist, solid and secure, and Olivia felt that same strange flutter in her chest. The ride to Florissant took hours. The snow was deep, and the horse had to pick its way carefully. But Dalton knew the land, knew where the drifts would be less deep, where the ground was firmer. He talked as they rode, pointing out landmarks even though they were mostly buried in snow, telling her about the country. "It is hard land," he said. "Unforgiving, but it is beautiful too in its own way. In spring, the meadows fill with wildflowers. In summer, the grass grows tall and green. The winters are brutal, but they make you appreciate the warm days all the more." "You love it here," Olivia said. "I do. I came out here 5 years ago from Missouri, bought the ranch with money I saved working cattle drives. It is not much yet, but it is mine. Every acre, every cow, I earned it myself." There was pride in his voice, and Olivia understood it. She had worked hard too, knew the satisfaction of earning your own way. "Your family is still in Missouri. My parents died when I was young. I have a sister back east somewhere, married, but we lost touch years ago. The ranch is my family now. The land, the cattle, my 2 ranch hands, Pete and Sam. That is enough." They crested a hill, and suddenly Florissant spread out below them, a small collection of buildings nestled in a valley. Smoke rose from chimneys, and even from a distance, Olivia could see people moving in the streets, digging out from the storm. "There," Dalton said, "you will be warm and safe soon." But Olivia found she was not as eager to arrive as she had been. The ride had been oddly pleasant, despite the cold and the difficult conditions. Being held in Dalton's arms, listening to his voice, feeling the steady rhythm of the horse beneath them, it had all felt right in a way she could not explain. They rode into town, and people stopped to stare. A woman riding with a man, both of them snow-covered and obviously having been caught in the storm, was cause for curiosity and gossip. Dalton ignored the stares and rode straight to the hotel, a 2-story building with a wide porch. He dismounted and helped Olivia down, his hands strong and steady on her waist. "Get yourself a room and some hot food," he said. "I will find Harold Pemberton and let him know you are here." "Thank you," Olivia said, and the words felt entirely inadequate for what he had done. "You saved my life, Mr. Ellis. I will never forget that." Something passed between them, a look that held more than gratitude, more than simple acknowledgement. Then Dalton stepped back, touching the brim of his hat. "Any decent man would have done the same, Miss Zimmerman. I am glad I found you in time." He turned to lead his horse away, and Olivia watched him go, feeling an unexpected sense of loss. Then the hotel door opened and a woman came bustling out. "My goodness, child, you look half frozen. Come inside, come inside. I am Mrs. Patterson, I run the hotel. We heard about the Stagecoach being caught in the storm. We feared everyone on it was lost." Olivia let herself be ushered inside into warmth and light and the smell of cooking food. But even as Mrs. Patterson fussed over her, bringing her hot soup and bread, drawing her a hot bath, all Olivia could think about was Dalton Ellis and the way his arm had felt around her waist. An hour later, fed and bathed and dressed in fresh clothes from her miraculously dry carpetbag, Olivia was sitting in the hotel parlor when Harold Pemberton arrived. He was exactly as she had imagined from his letters. Neat, proper, carefully dressed even in a frontier town. He was perhaps 35, with thinning brown hair and a slight build. His face was pleasant enough, his manner polite as he greeted her. "Miss Zimmerman, I am so relieved to see you safe. When I heard about the storm, I feared the worst." "I was very lucky," Olivia said. "A rancher named Dalton Ellis found me and brought me to shelter." "Yes, he came by the bank to inform me you had arrived. A rough sort of man, but decent enough, I suppose. Harold sat down across from her, arranging his coat carefully. I've taken the liberty of arranging for you to stay here at the hotel until we can be properly married. I thought perhaps 3 days to allow you to rest and recover, and to allow for the banns to be read. That is very thoughtful, Olivia said, though she felt oddly disconnected from the conversation, as if she were watching it happen to someone else. I hope you will be happy here, Miss Zimmerman. Florissant is small, but it is growing. The bank is doing well, and I have a comfortable house on the edge of town. We will have a good life together. Comfortable. Good. The same words that had appealed to her in his letters, but now they seemed somehow lacking. Olivia thought of Dalton talking about the land he loved, the pride in his voice when he spoke of what he had built with his own hands. There was passion there, life, something wild and real, but she pushed the thought away. She had made a commitment to Harold, traveled all this way to honor it. She would not be swayed by a few hours with a handsome cowboy, no matter how kind he had been. I am sure I will be very happy, she said, and tried to believe it. Harold stayed for a proper amount of time, making polite conversation before taking his leave. He had business at the bank, he explained, and he would call on her again the next day. He kissed her hand formally before he left, and Olivia felt absolutely nothing. She spent the rest of the day in her room, trying to rest but finding herself unable to settle. Her mind kept wandering to Dalton, wondering if he had found the stage driver, if he had made it back to his ranch safely. She told herself she was simply concerned for someone who had helped her, nothing more. That evening, Mrs. Patterson brought dinner to her room, chattering cheerfully as she set out the plates. Mr. Pemberton is a good man, she said. Very respectable. You are lucky to be marrying him. Yes, Olivia agreed. Very lucky. Though I must say, Mrs. Patterson continued, a twinkle in her eye, there are plenty of young ladies around here who would not mind being rescued by Dalton Ellis. He is quite the catch himself, if you like the rugged type. Owns his own ranch, hard-working, honest as the day is long. A bit wild, perhaps, but some women like that. He was very kind to me, Olivia said carefully. Oh, Dalton is a good man. Keeps to himself mostly, but he is always the first to help when someone needs it. Last spring, when the Miller family's barn burned down, he was out there for 3 days straight helping rebuild it. And he never takes a penny for helping folk, no matter how much they offer. Olivia found herself hungry for more information. Has he never been married? No, though not for lack of interested women. I think he is married to that ranch of his. He has been building it up from nothing, and you can see the pride he takes in it. Mrs. Patterson collected the empty dishes. But a man like that needs a good woman, someone who can appreciate what he has built and help him build more. It is a shame, really. After Mrs. Patterson left, Olivia lay in bed staring at the ceiling. She thought about Harold and his comfortable house and his good position at the bank. Then she thought about Dalton and his ranch that he had built with his own hands, his pride in every acre he owned, the way he had held her on his horse and told her to stay, stay. That word echoed in her mind. He had meant stay awake, stay alive. But Olivia found herself wondering what it would be like if he had meant something more. Stay with me. Stay here. Stay. She told herself she was being foolish. She barely knew the man. She was engaged to Harold, or as good as. She could not throw away security and comfort for a few hours of feeling alive in a snowstorm. But still, as she finally fell asleep, it was Dalton she dreamed of. The next morning dawned clear and cold. Olivia dressed carefully and went down to breakfast in the hotel dining room. She was surprised to see Dalton there, sitting alone at a corner table with a cup of coffee. He looked tired, his face drawn and her heart clenched. He saw her and stood, his manners impeccable despite his rough clothing. Miss Zimmerman, I hope you are well rested. I am, thank you, and you? Did you find the stage driver? Dalton's face was somber. Yes. He had tried to lead the horses to shelter, but the cold took him. We found him about a quarter-mile from where the coach was stuck. I brought his body back to town last night. He had family in Denver that have been notified. I am so sorry, Olivia said softly. It could so easily have been her, frozen in the snow, lost to the storm. So am I. He was a good man, Tom Spencer. Drove that route for 15 years. Dalton gestured to the empty chair at his table. Would you join me for coffee, or would that be improper? Olivia knew it probably was improper, but she found she did not care. She sat down, and Dalton signaled the waitress to bring another cup. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, and then Dalton said, I leave for my ranch this morning. I wanted to make sure you were all right before I left. I am fine, thanks to you. Olivia wrapped her hands around the warm coffee cup. Mr. Pemberton has been very attentive. We are to be married in 3 days. That's soon. Dalton's voice was carefully neutral. There seems no reason to wait. I suppose not. Dalton stared into his coffee. Miss Zimmerman, I hope you will forgive me for speaking plainly, but are you certain this is what you want? Marriage to a man you do not know. Olivia felt her defenses rise. Many marriages begin with less. Affection can grow with time. Can, perhaps, but should you not wait to see if it does? Rush into a marriage, and you may find yourself trapped in something that makes you miserable. And what would you have me do instead? Olivia asked, her voice sharper than she intended. Return to Denver and my tiny room and my piecework sewing. Hope that something better comes along. No, Dalton said quietly. I would have you wait to marry until you find someone who makes your heart beat faster just by walking into a room, someone who makes you feel alive, someone you cannot imagine living without. The words hung in the air between them, charged with meaning. Olivia felt her pulse quicken, felt the heat rising in her cheeks. That is a fantasy, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Real life is not like that, it could be. Dalton reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of touching hers. Olivia, I know I have no right to say this. I have known you less than a day, but I have never felt about anyone the way I feel about you. When I held you on my horse, when I watched you sleep by the fire, when I saw you smile this morning, I felt something I have never felt before. And I think maybe you felt it too. Olivia's breath caught in her throat. Everything in her wanted to deny it, to retreat into the safety of propriety and plans already made. But she found she could not lie, not to him, not to herself. I did feel something, she admitted in a whisper. I do. But Dalton, I made a commitment to Harold. I came all this way to marry him. I cannot simply change my mind because I met someone else. Why not? You are not married yet. You owe him courtesy, perhaps, and honesty, but you do not owe him your life if your heart is not in it. My heart. Olivia laughed shakily. I barely know my own heart anymore. 2 days ago I was content with my plans. Now everything is confused. Then take time to unconfuse it. Tell Pemberton you need more time before you commit to marriage. Get to know him properly and get to know me. Then decide. Dalton finally closed the distance, his hand covering hers. His touch was warm, gentle, and Olivia felt something inside her settle and ignite all at once. Give us a chance, Olivia, please. Before Olivia could answer, Harold Pemberton walked into the dining room. He stopped short when he saw them, his gaze dropping to their clasped hands. His face tightened. Miss Zimmerman, he said coldly. Mr. Ellis. Dalton stood, not hurrying, not looking guilty. Pemberton. I was just checking that Miss Zimmerman had recovered from her ordeal. How thoughtful. I am sure she appreciates your concern, but as her intended husband, I will see to her welfare from here. Harold's tone was polite but dismissive. Good day, Mr. Ellis. It was a clear dismissal. Dalton looked at Olivia, a question in his eyes. She knew what he was asking. She could stand up for him, for them, for what might be between them. Or she could let him walk away and continue with her plans to marry Harold. Olivia opened her mouth, but no words came out. Fear, propriety, the weight of expectations, all of it held her silent. Dalton waited a moment longer, then nodded slowly. The disappointment in his eyes cut her like a knife. "Good day, Miss Zimmerman. Pemberton." He touched the brim of his hat and walked out, his steps measured and steady. Olivia watched him go, feeling as if something precious was slipping through her fingers. Then Harold was sitting down across from her, his expression stern. "I must say, I am surprised to find you alone with another man, particularly in such an intimate manner. That is not the behavior I would expect from my wife." "He saved my life," Olivia said, stung by his tone. "Surely I am permitted to speak with him." "Of course, and I am grateful for his assistance. But holding hands in public, that is quite different, Miss Zimmerman. I hope you understand that once we are married, such behavior will not be tolerated." Olivia felt something harden inside her. "Tolerated? Mr. Pemberton, I am not a child to be managed. No, but you will be my wife, and I expect you to behave accordingly." Harold softened his tone slightly. "I am not an unreasonable man, Miss Zimmerman. I understand you have been through a difficult experience, but I must insist on certain standards of propriety. Surely you can understand that." Olivia understood, all too well. She saw the future stretching before her, a life of being managed and constrained, of living up to Harold's standards, of being tolerated as long as she behaved accordingly. It was the life she had agreed to, the life she had traveled all this way to embrace. And suddenly she knew with absolute certainty that she could not do it. "Mr. Pemberton," she said carefully, "I wonder if perhaps we should take more time before we marry. We do not really know each other, and I think perhaps we should spend some weeks becoming better acquainted before we make such a permanent commitment." Harold's eyes narrowed. "This is about Ellis, is it not? That cowboy has turned your head with his rough charm." "Miss Zimmerman, I had thought you a sensible woman, but I see I was mistaken." "I am a sensible woman," Olivia said, her temper rising. "Sensible enough to know that I should not marry a man who speaks to me as if I were property to be managed. Good day, Mr. Pemberton. I release you from any obligation you feel toward me, and I release myself from any obligation to you. We will not be marrying in 3 days or any other time." She stood, her legs shaking but her head held high. Harold stood as well, his face red. "If you walk away now, do not expect me to take you back when that cowboy abandons you. And he will, Miss Zimmerman. Men like that are not interested in marriage and respectability. He will tire of you and leave you with nothing." "That is a risk I am willing to take," Olivia said. "Because even nothing with him would be better than everything with you." She walked out of the dining room, her heart pounding, terrified and exhilarated all at once. She had just destroyed her one chance at security, at a comfortable life. She had burned her bridges for a man she had known less than a day, a man who might not even want her once the novelty wore off. But as she climbed the stairs to her room, Olivia felt lighter than she had in years. Whatever happened next, at least she would be choosing it herself. She spent the rest of the morning in a state of nervous energy, pacing her room, wondering what to do next. She could not stay at the hotel indefinitely. She had very little money. She needed to find work, a place to live. And she needed to see Dalton, to tell him what she had done, though she had no idea where his ranch was or how to get there. In the early afternoon, there was a knock on her door. Olivia opened it to find Mrs. Patterson standing there, her face full of curiosity. "I heard you broke off your engagement to Mr. Pemberton," she said without preamble. "Half the town is talking about it." "Word travels fast," Olivia said wearily. In a town this size. Always does. Mrs. Patterson came into the room, closing the door behind her. Now, I am not one to pry, but I am going to anyway. Did you break it off because of Dalton Ellis? There seemed no point in lying. Partially. But also because I realized I could not marry Harold. We would have made each other miserable. Mrs. Patterson nodded sagely. I thought as much when I saw you two together yesterday. You looked like you were sitting with your banker, not your future husband. No spark at all. She paused. But when you look at Dalton Ellis, well, that is a different story entirely. Olivia felt herself blushing. Is it that obvious? Only to anyone with eyes. The question is, what are you going to do about it? I do not know. I do not even know where his ranch is. 10 miles northeast of town, like he told you. Easy to find if you know the way. Mrs. Patterson gave her a shrewd look. Of course, a lady could not go riding out there alone. But if, say, she needed to hire a buggy to go visiting, and if the driver happened to know the way to the Ellis ranch, well, that would be different. Hope flared in Olivia's chest. Could you arrange that? I could. My nephew has a buggy and owes me a favor. He could take you out there this afternoon if you like. Though I should warn you, Dalton Ellis is not a man to play games with. If you go out there, you had better be sure of what you want. Olivia thought of Harold's cold dismissal, of the way Dalton had looked at her across the table, of the feeling of being held in his arms as they rode through the storm. I am sure, she said. Well then, let me talk to my nephew, bundle up warm, it is still bitter cold out there. An hour later, Olivia was sitting in a buggy driven by a cheerful young man named Tommy, heading northeast out of Florissant. The road was rough, still covered in snow, but the horse was steady and Tommy knew the way. He chatted as he drove, pointing out landmarks, giving Olivia the history of the area. Dalton Ellis is a good man, he said. My pa broke his leg last year, and Dalton came by once a week to help with the heavy work until he was healed. Never asked for anything in return, just said that is what neighbors do. You could do a lot worse than a man like that. I am beginning to realize that, Olivia said softly. The Ellis Ranch appeared as they crested a hill, a collection of buildings nestled in a valley. There was a main house, small but solidly built, a large barn, a few outbuildings. Olivia could see cattle in the distance, dark shapes against the white snow, and smoke rising from the house's chimney. As they pulled into the yard, a man emerged from the barn, grizzled and bow-legged. He squinted at them suspiciously. Help you? I am here to see Mr. Ellis, Olivia said, her courage wavering slightly. Dalton, he is out checking the cattle, should be back soon. The man looked her up and down. You the woman from the Stagecoach? Yes. I am Olivia Zimmerman. The man's face softened slightly. Heard about you. I am Pete, work here on the ranch. You can wait inside if you want, out of the cold. Olivia hesitated, but Tommy was already helping her down from the buggy. I will come back for you in a couple of hours, he said. That give you enough time? Yes, thank you. Pete led her to the house and opened the door. Inside was a single large room that served as kitchen, dining area, and living space, with 2 doors leading off to what were probably bedrooms. It was rough but clean, furnished simply with handmade furniture. A fire burned in the fireplace and there were books on a shelf, worn from reading. Make yourself comfortable, Pete said. I will tell Dalton you are here when he gets back. He left, and Olivia found herself alone in Dalton's house. She looked around, seeing the evidence of his life everywhere. A coat hanging by the door, work worn and weathered. Dishes drying by the sink, washed and neatly stacked. A half-finished carving on the table, a horse taking shape from a piece of wood. It was a simple life, she could see that. Nothing like the comfortable house Harold had promised her. But it was an honest life, built with hard work and determination, and Olivia found she wanted to be part of it more than she had ever wanted anything. She heard hoofbeats outside and went to the window. Dalton was riding into the yard on his big roan horse, Pete walking beside him, clearly telling him about his visitor. Olivia saw Dalton's head jerk up, saw him looking toward the house. Then he was dismounting and striding toward the door, and Olivia's heart was beating so fast she thought it might burst from her chest. The door opened, and Dalton stood there, snow clinging to his coat, his face red from the cold. He stared at her as if he could not quite believe she was real. "Olivia, what are you doing here?" "I broke off my engagement to Harold," Olivia said, the words tumbling out in a rush. "I told him we would not be marrying, and then I hired a buggy to bring me here because I needed to see you, needed to tell you that you were right. I do feel something for you, something I have never felt before. And I know it is crazy, we barely know each other, and maybe you do not feel the same way now. Maybe this morning was just a moment and I am making a fool of myself. But I had to come, had to tell you that I choose this, I choose you if you will have me." She ran out of words and stood there, breathing hard, terrified of what he would say. Dalton did not say anything. He crossed the room in 3 long strides, cupped her face in his cold, rough hands and kissed her. It was nothing like the chaste, formal kiss Harold had pressed to her hand. This was fire and need and promise, and Olivia kissed him back with everything in her. His arms came around her, pulling her close, and she melted into him, into the warmth and strength of him. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. Dalton rested his forehead against hers, his hand still cradling her face. "I have been thinking about doing that since I first saw you," he admitted. "Even frozen and half dead in that stagecoach, you were the most beautiful thing I had ever seen." "I have been thinking about it too," Olivia confessed. "I tried to tell myself it was gratitude, that I was just confused. But it was not, it is not." "No." Dalton kissed her again, softer this time, gentle and sweet. "Olivia, I know this is fast, I know it is crazy, but I meant what I said this morning. I have never felt this way about anyone. The thought of you marrying Pemberton, of never seeing you again, it was unbearable." "Then it is a good thing I am here instead," Olivia said, smiling up at him. "It is a very good thing." Dalton stepped back slightly, though he kept one hand on her waist as if afraid she might disappear if he let go completely. "But Olivia, you need to understand what you would be getting into. This ranch, it is my life, but it is a hard life. Long days, hard work, winters that can kill you if you are not careful. I do not have much to offer you in terms of comfort or luxury." "I do not need comfort or luxury," Olivia said firmly. "I need honesty and partnership and someone who sees me as an equal, not as property to be managed. I think I can find that here with you if you are willing to give us a chance." "More than willing," Dalton said, "but I want to do this right. I do not want you to feel rushed or pressured. Stay in town, let me court you properly. Come out here and see what ranch life is really like. Make sure this is what you really want, that it is not just reaction to ending things with Pemberton." Olivia understood what he was saying, and she loved him for it even though she wanted to protest. He was giving her time, space, the chance to be certain. It was the opposite of how Harold had tried to rush her into marriage, and it showed more care for her well-being than any pretty words could. "All right," she agreed. "We will do this properly, but Dalton, I already know. My heart knows. Mine too," he said softly. "But let us give your head time to catch up." They spent the next hour talking, really talking, sharing their histories and their dreams. Dalton told her about growing up poor in Missouri, about losing his parents to fever, about working cattle drives and saving every penny until he could buy this land. Olivia told him about her parents, about her father's failed business ventures and their genteel poverty, about her mother's death from pneumonia and her father's from heartbreak 6 months later. "I was all alone," she said. "I had no one, no skills except sewing. I was so tired of being afraid all the time, of not knowing if I could pay my rent, of eating once a day to save money. When Harold's letters came, offering security, I grabbed at it like a drowning woman grabbing a rope." "You are not alone anymore," Dalton said, taking her hand. "Whatever happens between us, you have a friend here. If you need help, if you need anything, you come to me. Understand?" Olivia nodded, too moved to speak. This man, this virtual stranger, was offering her more genuine care and support than anyone had in years. How could she not fall in love with him? Tommy returned as promised, and Dalton walked Olivia back out to the buggy. "Come back on Sunday," he said. "I will show you around the ranch properly, and maybe you can stay for dinner. Pete is not much of a cook, but he makes a passable stew." "I would like that," Olivia said. "And Dalton, thank you for everything. Thank me by coming back," he said, and kissed her once more before helping her into the buggy. The ride back to Florissant passed in a blur. Olivia sat wrapped in blankets, her lips still tingling from Dalton's kisses, her heart so full she thought it might overflow. Tommy chattered away, but she barely heard him. All she could think about was Sunday and seeing Dalton again. Over the next few days, Olivia settled into a routine. She found work at the general store, helping with accounts and inventory. The pay was not much, but it was enough to cover her room at the hotel with a little left over. Mrs. Patterson, bless her, gave Olivia a reduced rate, claiming she needed the help around the hotel anyway. Harold Pemberton made no attempt to contact her, which was both a relief and a confirmation that she had made the right choice. A man who truly loved her would have fought for her, would have tried to understand. Harold simply wrote her off as a loss and moved on. Dalton, on the other hand, came into town twice during that week, ostensibly for supplies but really to see Olivia. They took walks together, properly chaperoned by Mrs. Patterson or one of the other town ladies. They talked about everything and nothing, discovering shared opinions and laughing at their differences. On Sunday, Tommy drove Olivia out to the ranch again. This time, Dalton was waiting for her, and he spent the afternoon showing her everything. The cattle, hardy longhorns that could survive the brutal winters. The barn, well-built and spacious. The chickens and the vegetable garden, currently buried in snow but productive in the summer. The pastures and the creek and the stands of pine trees that provided lumber. "It is not much yet," Dalton said as they stood on a hill overlooking the ranch. "But I have plans. I want to expand the herd, build a bigger house, maybe hire more hands. In 5 years, 10, this could be one of the best ranches in the territory." "It is already beautiful," Olivia said honestly. "Because you built it with your own hands, with your own sweat and determination. That means more than a dozen fancy houses someone else built for you." Dalton looked at her with such warmth in his eyes that Olivia felt her breath catch. "You really do understand, do you not? What this place means to me, I do, and I want to help you build it if you will let me. Olivia." Dalton took both her hands in his. "I know we have only known each other 2 weeks, and I know I said we should take our time, but I cannot wait any longer to ask you this. Will you marry me? Not because you need security, not because it is practical, but because you want to, because you love me the way I love you." Olivia's eyes filled with tears. "You love me, with everything I am," Dalton said simply. "I knew it the first night in that cabin, watching you sleep by the fire. I knew I would do anything to keep you safe, to make you happy. I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life with you." "Yes," Olivia said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, I will marry you. I love you too, Dalton." I think I have since you pulled me out of that stagecoach and told me to stay." He kissed her there on the hill, with the ranch spread out below them and the mountains rising in the distance. It was a kiss full of promise and passion, and Olivia knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be. They were married 3 weeks later in the small church in Florissant. It was a simple ceremony, with Pete and Sam and Mrs. Patterson and Tommy and a handful of other townspeople in attendance. Harold Pemberton did not come, but Olivia did not care. She stood beside Dalton in her best dress, which was plain but clean, and spoke her vows with a full heart. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Dalton kissed her with such tenderness that Olivia felt tears slipping down her cheeks. Then they were walking back down the aisle together, hand in hand, and the small congregation was cheering. There was a modest celebration at the hotel, with cake and coffee and well wishes. Then Dalton lifted Olivia onto his horse, swung up behind her, and they rode out to the ranch together as husband and wife. The first months of their marriage were an adjustment. Ranch life was indeed hard work, harder than anything Olivia had done before. She learned to milk the cow, to gather eggs, to cook over the fireplace and the wood stove. She learned to help with the calving in the spring, to mend harnesses and churn butter and 100 other tasks. But she also learned the joy of working beside the man she loved, of building something together. She learned the satisfaction of seeing the results of her labor, of knowing that every egg gathered, every meal cooked, every fence mended contributed to their shared life. And she learned the pleasure of falling into bed beside Dalton each night, exhausted and satisfied, his arms around her. Those were the moments she treasured most, the quiet conversations in the dark, the gentle touches, the laughter and the passion. By summer, Olivia could not imagine her life any other way. The ranch was thriving, the cattle healthy, the garden producing vegetables faster than they could eat them. Olivia spent her days working and her evenings sitting on the porch with Dalton, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and pink. "Happy?" Dalton asked one evening, his arm around her shoulders. "Happier than I ever thought possible," Olivia said honestly. "I wake up every morning grateful that storm trapped my stagecoach, grateful that you found me." "Best storm of my life," Dalton agreed, kissing the top of her head. "Though I admit, at the time I was cursing it pretty thoroughly." They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the evening sounds of the ranch. Then Olivia said, "Dalton, I have something to tell you." "What is it?" He turned to look at her, concerned by her tone. Olivia took his hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. "I am expecting a baby. In about 6 months, if I am counting correctly." Dalton's face went through a series of expressions, shock, joy, wonder, ending in the widest smile Olivia had ever seen. "A baby! We are going to have a baby, we are." Olivia laughed as Dalton pulled her into a fierce hug, then immediately loosened his hold as if afraid he might hurt her. "I am going to be a father," he said, wonder in his voice. "Olivia, I am going to be a father." "You are going to be a wonderful father," Olivia assured him. "Firm but kind, the same way you are with the horses and cattle. Our child will be lucky to have you." "Our child will be lucky to have both of us," Dalton corrected. He laid his hand gently on her stomach again, as if already protecting the tiny life growing there. "We need to make plans. I should start on that bigger house I have been talking about. We will need more room and a proper nursery, and we should get you into town to see the doctor, make sure everything is all right." Olivia laughed at his sudden torrent of plans. "We have time, my love. 6 months is a long while yet." But Dalton was already mentally building the new house. She could see it in his eyes. And Olivia loved him for it, for the way he immediately turned his mind to providing for their growing family. The months passed quickly. Autumn came, painting the aspens gold, and Dalton and Pete and Sam worked to get the ranch ready for winter. They brought the cattle down from the high pastures, stocked the barn with hay, chopped cords of firewood. Olivia preserved vegetables and made jam and knitted tiny clothes for the baby. By the time the first snow fell in November, Olivia was large and awkward, but she had never felt more beautiful. Dalton treated her like spun glass, constantly fussing over her, making sure she did not work too hard. She tolerated it with good humor, understanding that it came from love and concern. The baby came in late January, during another snowstorm. This one was not as severe as the blizzard that had brought Olivia to Dalton, but it was enough to make traveling to town impossible. Olivia labored through the night while Dalton paced and prayed and held her hand, and just before dawn, she delivered a healthy baby boy. "He is perfect," Dalton breathed, holding his son for the first time. The baby was tiny in his large, work-roughened hands, but Dalton held him with infinite gentleness. "Olivia, he is absolutely perfect." Olivia, exhausted and elated, smiled up at them, her husband and her son, her family. "What should we name him?" They had discussed names for months, but now Dalton said, "Thomas, after the stage driver who died so you could live. Tom Spencer gave his life trying to keep you safe. I think he would be honored to have your son named after him." Tears filled Olivia's eyes. "Thomas Ellis, yes, that is perfect." Little Thomas was a healthy, happy baby who grew quickly. By spring, he was smiling and laughing, delighting in the world around him. Dalton was a devoted father, often found with the baby strapped to his chest as he did his work around the ranch. Olivia would look out the window and see him talking to Thomas as he repaired fence or checked on the cattle, and her heart would swell with love. The new house was finished by Thomas's first birthday, a larger, more comfortable home with separate bedrooms and a proper kitchen. They celebrated with a party, inviting the neighbors and the friends they had made in Florissant. Mrs. Patterson came, and Tommy with his new wife and dozens of others. "Look at what you have built," Mrs. Patterson said to Olivia, gesturing at the ranch, the house, the gathered friends. "A year and a half ago, you were alone and scared with nothing but a carpetbag and a ticket to an uncertain future. Now look at you." Olivia looked at Dalton, who was showing Thomas off to Pete and Sam, his face alight with pride and joy. "I have everything," she said softly. "Everything that matters." The years passed in a blur of hard work and happiness. Thomas grew into a sturdy, curious boy who followed his father everywhere. 2 years after his birth, Olivia delivered a daughter they named Caroline, and 3 years after that, another son they called James. The ranch prospered. Dalton's herd grew, his reputation for quality cattle spread, and buyers came from as far as Denver to purchase from him. He hired more hands, built more outbuildings, bought more land. But no matter how successful they became, Dalton never forgot where he came from, and he never turned away someone who needed help. Olivia became a pillar of the Florissant community, known for her kindness and her practical good sense. She taught school for a few years, helped establish a lending library, and was always the first to show up when a neighbor needed assistance. But her greatest joy was her family. Watching her children grow, teaching them to read and ride and care for the land. Sitting on the porch in the evenings with Dalton, his hand in hers, reviewing the day and making plans for tomorrow. The quiet moments in bed at night, when they would hold each other and whisper their dreams and hopes. On their 10th anniversary, Dalton took Olivia back to the cabin where he had brought her during the blizzard. The place had been kept up over the years, used occasionally by travelers caught in bad weather. They spent the day there, just the two of them, while Mrs. Patterson watched the children. "Do you remember that night?" Dalton asked as they sat by the fire, so similar to that first night and yet completely different. Every moment, Olivia said. I was so cold, so scared, and then you appeared like an answer to a prayer. I remember thinking how beautiful you were, even half frozen. And I remember knowing somehow that finding you would change my life. Dalton pulled her closer. I was right. You changed everything, Olivia. You took a lonely cowboy and his ranch and turned it into a home, a family, a life worth living. We built it together, Olivia corrected. Everything we have, we made together. Together, Dalton agreed. Always together. He kissed her, and it was as sweet and passionate as their first kiss had been, full of love and promise and the knowledge that they had chosen well, chosen each other. As they rode back to the ranch that evening, the setting sun painting the sky in shades of orange and gold, Olivia thought about the girl she had been, scared and alone on that stagecoach. She had been looking for security, for a safe harbor. Instead, she had found adventure, passion, true partnership, and a love deeper than she had ever imagined possible. The blizzard had trapped her stagecoach in the snow. The cowboy had built a fire and told her to stay. And she had stayed and built a life more wonderful than any dream. Thomas grew up tall and strong like his father, taking naturally to ranch work and eventually becoming Dalton's right hand in running the operation. At 22, he married a local girl named Sarah, and they built a house on the southern edge of the property. Within a year, they made Dalton and Olivia grandparents for the first time. A baby girl they named Olivia after her grandmother. Caroline, spirited and bright, became a teacher in Florissant. She married a doctor who came to town when she was 20, and they settled in a house near the school. She never strayed far from the ranch, bringing her own children to visit every Sunday. James, the youngest, inherited his father's love of the land and his mother's way with words. He spent winters working the ranch and summers writing articles about life in Colorado for newspapers back east. His stories brought tourists to the area, people eager to experience the Wild West, and the town of Florissant prospered because of it. Dalton and Olivia watched their children grow and start families of their own with deep satisfaction. The ranch that Dalton had built with his own hands now supported 3 generations, with promise of many more to come. They were in their 50s when Colorado achieved statehood in 1876, 20 years after their marriage. The town of Florissant, now officially part of Teller County, celebrated with a huge festival, and the Ellis family was at the center of it. Dalton gave a speech about the importance of hard work and community, and Olivia cut the ribbon on the new school building that her efforts had helped fund. 20 years, Olivia marveled that night as they prepared for bed in the house that had become so full of memories. Can you believe it has been 20 years since that blizzard, best storm of my life, Dalton said, just as he had said so many times over the years. It had become their private joke, their reminder of how they had found each other. Mine too, Olivia agreed, settling into his arms just as she had done every night for 2 decades. Some things, she thought, never grew old. In their 60s, with their children grown and established, Dalton and Olivia finally had time to slow down, to enjoy the fruits of their labor. They traveled a bit, visiting Thomas and Sarah, spending weeks at a time with Caroline and her growing brood, reading James's latest articles with pride. But they always came back to the ranch, to the land that had been the foundation of everything they had built together. They would sit on the porch in the evenings, watching the sunset, holding hands just as they had done when they were young. No regrets. Dalton asked one evening, his hair now silver, his face lined with years of sun and wind but still handsome to Olivia. Not a single one, she assured him. Her own hair was white now, her hands gnarled from years of hard work, but in Dalton's eyes she saw the same love that had been there from the beginning. "You, only that I did not find you sooner. Think of all the years we could have had together." "We have had enough," Olivia said contentedly. "More than enough. We have been blessed, my love." They were in their 70s when Dalton's health began to fail. He fought it, stubborn to the end, but time catches everyone eventually. One spring morning, with Olivia beside him and his children and grandchildren gathered around, Dalton Ellis closed his eyes for the last time. Olivia held his hand as he passed, tears streaming down her face but a smile on her lips. "Thank you," she whispered, "for finding me, for loving me, for giving me the most wonderful life. Wait for me, my darling. I will find you again." The whole town turned out for Dalton's funeral. He was buried on a hill overlooking the ranch he loved with a simple headstone that read, "Dalton Ellis, 1849–1925. Beloved husband, father, grandfather." He built a good life. Olivia lived for 3 more years, spending her days surrounded by family, telling stories of the old days to her great-grandchildren. She never remarried, never even considered it. She had had her great love, her true partner, and that was enough for one lifetime. On a winter evening, with snow falling softly outside, Olivia passed away peacefully in her sleep at the age of 73. She was buried beside Dalton, her headstone reading, "Olivia Ellis, 1854–1928. Beloved wife, mother, grandmother." She stayed. The ranch continued on, past to Thomas, and then to his children. The house Dalton built still stands, preserved lovingly by generations of his descendants. And in the cabin where a cowboy once built a fire and told a scared young woman to stay, there is now a plaque that tells their story. It reads, "In February 1876, during a terrible blizzard, Dalton Ellis found Olivia Zimmerman trapped in a stagecoach in the snow. He brought her here, built a fire, and told her to stay. She did. From that night came a love story that lasted 50 years, a family that spans generations, and a ranch that still stands as a testament to what two people can build together. True love, true partnership, true devotion. This is where it began." People still visit the cabin, especially young couples, hoping that some of Dalton and Olivia's enduring love will rub off on them. They stand where Olivia once stood, shivering and scared, and where Dalton built his fire. They imagine that moment when two strangers became something more, when a simple word, "stay," became an invitation to a lifetime of love. And on winter nights, when the wind howls down from the mountains and snow blankets the land, locals swear they can sometimes see two figures riding across the hills. A man on a big roan horse, a woman held safely in his arms, riding together through the storm, together for eternity. The storm that was meant to kill them had instead brought them together. The cowboy who built the fire had warmed more than her frozen body. He had warmed her heart and soul. And the woman who stayed had given him the greatest gift anyone can give, a love that lasted beyond death, a family that would carry on their legacy, a life that mattered. In the end, that is all anyone can hope for. To love and be loved in return. To build something that outlasts you. To make a difference in the world, even if it is just in the lives of your own family. Dalton and Olivia Ellis did all of that and more. They turned a moment of crisis into a lifetime of joy, a chance meeting into an enduring love story, a simple ranch into a legacy that would last for generations. And it all started with a blizzard, a stagecoach, a fire, and a single word, "stay."